So let's just go a little bit more into your story. So Jordan, how did you find your remote role, and what was the transitioning like for you? Because you didn't first start remote, you had an actual desk job, and then you got this opportunity. So what was that like?
Yeah, well, let's kind of clarify this too, because I started out at IBM, but everything that I did in that IBM role, I could do from my computer or in front of a client. So I was commuting about an hour and a half round trip to, some days it was two to three, depending on the traffic, but I was commuting to an office outside of Boston, and I had to be at that office.
Right.
Had to be there. Right.
Yeah.
And I actually don't regret that, because it was such a good experience to have that opportunity as a person in training to see other people in these roles, to talk to them. And I think this is why it's so important to evaluate if remote work is actually right for you. I don't think there's not a blanket statement that remote work is right for everybody. So that's a mistake to say remote works for everyone. I don't think it is. Because at the beginning of my career, it was really helpful for that first 9 months to have that experience. Now, one day I woke up when it was snowing outside, as Boston usually is in the winter. And I'm from California, so that was a huge change for me, was living in an environment like that. And I get this email that, my whole world changed at that moment, that said, today's a snow day, it's unsafe to drive, work from home. And I was just like so alleviated, happy, joyful, so much so that I just turned right back around and went to sleep. I was like, okay, well, I got an extra hour and a half of my morning here that I don't have to get ready, go defrost, go, wipe the snow off the windshields. I didn't have to do all that stuff. So I was just like, all right, my first meeting's in 2 or 3 hours. I'm just going to go back to bed. But what came out of that was, okay, I want to do this more often. So I was in a training program with 2 other people in that office as well. And what we did was we negotiated to be remote every Friday. So after winter was done, after the snow was no longer an excuse to not come in, we had done enough to prove that we could stay home and still do what little job we had in training. Because when you're in training, you don't have a ton of responsibilities in a lot of positions. So we started working from home every Friday. That turned into, okay, well, I want to do this full time. So after my training period, I ended up joining another team, going back to California, and I worked pretty much fully remotely. I had the option to go to an office, which I did, but it was 40 minutes away. So I'd go in every couple weeks just to go there, but there was no one there. I wasn't meeting anybody there. So it was just kind of pointless. I just needed to kind of get out of my room and get out of my space. So over time, eventually that's led to where I'm at now, where I've worked remotely for, close to 6 years, and, had so many experiences working remote internationally and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So you went from working at IBM, working remotely, and then you did some consulting for remote year program, and started several podcasts, weekly shows, and now you're kind of focused on helping people find remote roles, right?
Yeah, well, I actually had many different roles in between that too. I worked I worked as a vice president of a PR firm for almost a year. I started my own event company, which for the events I had to be there, but everything outside of the events was remote. I took on some freelance work, partnering with an agency that was fully remote. And then I started my coaching business, and that was, many years ago now, where the coaching business has evolved into what it is today. But I was doing that on the side, even as I got hired by Remote Year, which eventually worked for them for a year and 3 months.
Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. We will sure to come back with more exciting videos on Agile topics.